So this talk is about building a Star Trek universe from the bottom of the world. So just to start, I'm going to date myself. I was actually born the same time that Star Trek actually came out, and that was 1966. And so it gave us sort of a vision of what a future of space and humanity could be if we actually play our cards right. So 10 years after, I looked and went to a Star Wars theater, and I just got hooked. And from then on, that was it for me. But the problem is, just like Luke Skywalker in Tatooine, there was really no potential for somebody like a Filipina living in Manila in the 70s and 80s to actually work in space. That was just like, there was zero opportunity. But in 1989, I went to ISU and I got the golden ticket with a scholarship for ISU, and that basically changed my world. I was given all of the opportunity that I would never have imagined was possible. I was working in the most technological, like basically places in the world, and I would not be standing here today if not for ISU. So that was like, it changed my whole world. But at the same time as well is that I thought, the thing that I thought was like basically a handicap of living in the developing world was actually my strength. Because having been exposed and experienced the developing world and then also the most technological worlds today, it gave me an understanding of what really space for all really means and what that challenge is like today. So a lot has changed. If you actually, I'm old enough to say that like the last 10 years is like a warp drive. The 4 decades before that was just like a linear progression of like nothing is really happening. But today, there's just so much that's happening. And I think that's because of this exponential inflection point that has happened with all of the things that's happening today with exponential technologies. So with AI, nanotech, biotech, this has driven basically disruptive innovation and disruptive technology and made the democratization of space as we see it today. And so now that startups, 3 guys in a garage can actually create products and services that can compete with space agencies and big aerospace companies. And that's not just in the US, it's like everywhere around the world, which is really so fantastic to see. Today, we don't only work on science and technology and exploration, but also we look at economic development. We also use space technology to solve the biggest problems in the world. Today, the definition of space is also not just rockets and rocket ships. It's really the whole gamut of the value chain that we see today, and anybody who's passionate and interested can actually participate. So that's all great, but at the same time, the democratization of that basically opportunity is not there yet. So there is a widening gap that's still happening today in terms of the space industry and the global activities that's happening. So if you look at government activities or space companies that are actually happening, it's still always within the biggest and wealthiest countries in the world, as you can see in the graph. So this is a problem that will not go away if we actually don't do anything about it. There's a mind change and a paradigm change that needs to happen. So what did we do? My husband and I, who's also an ISU alumni, we left Silicon Valley and went to New Zealand like about 7.5 years ago to sort of like work on this problem. So what we did was we created Spacebase. It's a social enterprise, it's a nonprofit company that is really focusing on catalyzing space ecosystems in developing and emerging countries. So when we came to New Zealand in 2016 or 2017, Rocket Lab was just like starting. They haven't even launched yet. The New Zealand Space Agency is about a few months old. And we started looking for all of these companies that are actually working in space in New Zealand. And people thought, oh, well, are there 3, are there 12? But we actually found 200 different organizations that one way or another are working on some activity in space. And this became the baseline for a Deloitte report, which then pegged the New Zealand space economy at 1.8 billion. That's not big compared to other countries, but for a country of 5 million at the bottom of the world, that's actually pretty impressive because it's the same size as the New Zealand wine industry, which is also globally well known. So for us, we tried to do different types of initiatives. There's at least like 24 things that we did. We mentored startups, we advised government, and then we also did prize competitions where we leveraged satellite data to solve like problems like climate change. And so we wanted to know what works, what doesn't, what is hard to do and what's not. And so today, the New Zealand space industry is very nascent, but thriving. So they have a progressive government and agency that's really commercially focused. There's also, now because of Rocket Lab, they've got infrastructure, spaceports, ground stations, like test facilities. There's 2 industry associations that are also helping create and grow the community. And then maybe also really important is that diversity of funders. So it's not just grants, but also VCs, angels, as well as even traditional banks. So what is really important as well to see is that there's only a small number of startup companies today, but at the same time, they're very disruptive technologies that are actually being developed. So they're not incremental innovation, they're disruptive innovation that, if given the opportunity, could be very successful in the long run. So New Zealand is one example of a country that actually is leveraging the whole ecosystem. It's not working in silos. It's actually leveraging academia, industry, government, everybody within the community to actually develop together to create a space industry. Our influence and our impact has probably been interwoven into the development in the space ecosystem in New Zealand, and so now we want to share it to the rest of the world. So last year, it was really great that I had the opportunity of being the TP chair for the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program, and what we looked at is creating basically a guidebook of how to build space ecosystems anywhere around the world. And they also created a space maturity index that they're still working on even today. Also, the other thing that I found out is that having gone to these space summits and space conclaves around the world, there are other space enablers also who have the same passion as I have to actually create these ecosystems where they don't exist. And so for this year, along with some individuals and organizations from at least 6 continents, we're actually creating a Space Global Enablers Network. So the focus of this is to really empower the space enabler in any country who wants to create a space community. So how do we do this? We're hoping to create a decentralized organization that can have like a knowledge base, fellowships, mentorships, and hopefully also some resources that will also enable those individuals to actually create things in their own community. So I want to end with saying that if we really want to create a Star Trek universe, we need to start now. I know that I won't live long enough to actually see this realized, but we have to start this movement today because that's really how we're going to create a space for all, for everyone, and let's not leave anybody behind. So thank you, kia ora, and salamat.